Okay, well, I think we are live. Let me just check quickly because I'm using this for the first. Okay, we are live. So, hello everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And welcome, Steve. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here today and talk
My
to me,
pleasure. My
everyone.
pleasure.
And most people probably will be familiar with you and your work who are watching. But for those of you who are not, so Steve's an author, writer, a spiritual mentor, a founder of Soul Matrix. And there's a lot of free resources on YouTube that you have. And I posted actually like a lot of the information that in a comment, so anyone who wants to can just go and see that. So welcome
Thank you.
again. So Mike, I have a question for you, like a personal one, more. So how, like, as we're going through these shifts and changes, and the energy is really intense, how you been experiencing that? And also, along with that, a question from like a lot of us who are on a spiritual path, and you've been it for a while. Does it get easier? Because it can be exhausting. It can be grueling. Does it get easier?
Wow. Well, I found the energies actually intensified for me around 2010. So what's that? 10 years now. The last 10 years has been
Yeah,
very intense journey, and it's gone in waves because it was very intense for several years in a very challenging way, and
yeah,
then that eased up, and then I opened this work, and
right.
then there were challenges of a different kind, really. But I've found the more I've aligned with what I'm meant to be doing,
Exactly.
the challenges have got easier. But then again, I've had waves of it getting intense. So I have had a very intense challenge for a number of months, which is kind of finally on the other side coming out of. But these kind of challenges often are there to kick us forward. I mean, they can. Any challenge can be taken two ways. It can block us or it can kick us forward.
Yeah,
And sometimes it blocks us for a while and then kicks us forward. So I found often the more severe the challenge, usually the gift is it wants to move us in a direction, and we are the ones actually. We have to kind of look at our resistance, look at our. Also now we have. Because of the intensity, we're being triggered with ancestral stuff and past life stuff, and so it's not simple. It's not a simple linear challenge. Usually there are other
yeah,
aspects to it, usually now. But I found that this last particular challenge is propelling me forward again. But going through it can feel very burning and very intense.
yeah.
So
I found,
um, yeah,
yeah, sorry.
it gets easier when we align with our path, usually. But there's always
Yeah,
challenges. Yeah, always challenges.
that makes a lot of sense because I've had like periods of like very kind of being in the middle of a storm, and then it kind of settles, and I look back and I can see, okay, that happened for a reason. So there's like this shift in perspective as well, and awareness, I guess. So
Yeah,
yeah. So you mentioned something that came into my awareness recently. Uh, um, Also working with our bloodlines and ancestry lines, and so I was doing a lot of work in through the last year, and to going back from my experience, like as a starseed, I identify with this concept and aspect of being quite alien to the family I was brought in, was born to my environment. So I kind of, my initial reaction was just get as far as possible I can. But then throughout the years, so I kind of moved country again. And then there was this process of understanding. And last year was really intense in healing a lot of it through your work as well, and through kind of understanding that there is, once we heal and clear that, there can be a lot of gifts. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that, kind of what comes to mind when we go through this process?
yeah. Well, a lot of star seeds feel alien in their families because the bloodlines over the last 10,000 years has been very dark and heavy.
Yeah,
And so we feel that. Even in the last 100 years, we've had 2 world wars, which Europe would have felt, Europe has felt. So even in
Mm-hmm.
the last 100 years, it's very intense energies. But the last 2,000, very intense, but up to say 10,000 years of heaviness. So anyone born before, I don't know, maybe around the harmonic convergence in the late 80s, was it 87, I think,
Mm-hmm.
would have parents who are probably not star seeds mostly. If you're
Yeah,
born afterwards, you have a higher chance of having at least one parent as a star seed. Having one parent as a star seed helps because it anchors you. Or at least someone is there who gets you. Someone is a guardian. Someone is looking out for you. Someone understands your energy. But
exactly.
if both parents are not star seeds, it makes it much harder.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in the late 50s, so my parents were not like that way. There may be one person in the family that comes a guardian, like a grandmother or something, that can happen. Um, so it's kind of the black sheep of the family syndrome, but really you're the rainbow sheep. But the family doesn't like rainbow sheeps. They're
Exactly.
used to their brand of sheep. And
Yeah.
if you're very sensitive, you'll feel this heaviness. You don't know where it comes from. And at a certain point, usually when we're teenagers, it gets worse because all the kind of hormones are kicking in and we're becoming an adult. And at some point, some people run away as teenagers. They go, I'm out of this family. Some people, young adults. But even if you cross the ocean from Latvia to Portugal, you carry the bloodlines with you.
That's what I learned. Yeah.
They don't go away.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
you don't
what I
have to
learned.
listen to your mother going on or whatever, your father
Mm-hmm.
doing what he does, but
Mm-hmm.
the energy is still there. So bloodline energies are transmitted from mother and to daughter, or father to daughter, or mother to son, or father to son. And
Yeah.
so you get this double.
Mhm. Okay.
When we're born, the most intense one is the mother because we're connected to the mother, but later we feel the father's energy and we're connected to that. If
Yeah.
someone is adopted, it's not the adopted bloodline. They're not even if they feel like mother and father, it's not that. Your biological mother and father, even if you've never met them, is your connection, and that line is your connection. And
Right.
yeah, and so when you start the healing, there is usually layers of stuff to clear out, of programming, of contracts, of agreements, of
Mm-hmm.
stories.
Mm-hmm.
But at another level, there's gifts on the bloodline. The bloodline, there are beings in the bloodline that want to help us. There are ancestral guides. There are gifts. We may have to go back a long way to find those gifts. But all bloodlines originate in 5D energies. They're all were seeded in light,
Yeah.
but got interfered with. So we're having to deal with interference. Some families have a lot of interference. Some families may have a lot of heavy energy from war, from incest, from negative alien interference for whatever religious interference.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to get out of that stuff. So for example, my family, my both parents were British. My both grandfathers went through the First World War, and so that energy was very strong in both lines. And both grandparents went through World War II, and my parents went through World War II. So
Yeah.
even on that level of 100 years, there's a heavy layer, and beyond that, there are other layers. But we don't have to clear the whole blood. We just have to clear enough, and then we can kind of start to distance ourselves from the energy of the 3D bloodline, but we stay connected to the higher energy. So that's the thing. We don't just cut the bloodlines and go, I'm nothing to do with you. Further back, there are higher energies. We connect
That,
to them.
that yeah, that makes complete sense. Thank you. That came into my awareness only recently because I think it was so heavy when I was growing up. There was no one. I remember as a young child like searching and asking questions and being very curious, but until very later then I found like more key people, nothing to do with my bloodline. I know my family loves me, I love them, but there was none of that connection. Or so there was that first instinct, I just want to get away. So
Yeah.
that was my experience. Yes, but now as I'm healing and clearing, I find this very strong energy coming through. Also, as my both grandfathers passed away this last year, there was kind of a shift that I felt. So it's interesting. So I was, yeah.
Bloodlines can shift. The feeling of bloodline can shift. For example, when my first granddaughter was born, I felt the whole bloodline shift. There was a shifting in the whole energy, and
Yeah.
also there's a shift when your parents die. You become the head of the. You are the. There's no
Hmm.
one living. When grandparents go and your parents go, then you are the kind of top of that line. So there's all these shifting as new ones come down. But the work you're doing is helping to clear the bloodlines. That means that star seeds that come on the bloodline later will feel the benefit of your work.
Yeah.
But you
And
you have children, and
that's what I was going to say. I have a son who is going to be 8, so I feel he's definitely, we have such a strong bond. I think he's definitely a star seed. So his father is not, but I feel this work I'm doing, I feel there is like a very strong like connection with him as I'm working, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Like, because I think so. What happened was like I was pregnant with him, and he was born 2012 in February. So for me, it was a huge trigger point where I had that awakening push, and my perception completely shifted. I realized I wasn't organically understanding the relationship I'm in anymore. So it started to dissolve. It was really heartbreaking for all involved.
yeah.
So there was this element, but now it's starting to heal. And that leads me to one more question that came to me actually today about the role of forgiveness. So it came to me like that, because what happened, so our relationship with his father kind of dissolved, and it was quite difficult and challenging, and I needed to go out and work, so I wasn't present for him after he was 2 years old a lot of the time. So it was like it created like this deep kind of living pain body in my heart, which now is starting to kind of resolve. So what would, but it was more about the role of forgiveness to myself. Is there
Oh,
something, as we go through this journey, I find that there's a lot of, for me personally, there has been this more forgiving myself than
for
maybe
not being present when he was younger.
yeah.
Um, well, at some level, it's probable that or a part of you, consciously maybe not, but a part of you knew the father comes in, you have a son, but he wouldn't stay. We know these things at a deeper level, but we
uh,
agree to it. We go, well,
yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
So I'm not talking about conscious mind, because our conscious mind is in the world going, hey, great, here's a guy, and oh wonderful, we have a family. But at a
Hmm.
deeper level, there's the soul wants to come in, and the soul will choose the parents, the parents
Yeah.
will agree, okay, I'll be your mother, I'll be your father.
Hmm.
And but the father may not agree to hang around. And you
Yeah.
would go, okay, it doesn't matter. Even if you don't agree to hang around, you can still come. I love you. I want you to come. And it's important you're here. So come. And so the father disappears and you have to work and you're not really around. But your sons would, at some level, have probably of understood the likelihood of that happening
Hmm.
and still wanted to come anyway.
I
So
see. Yeah, sorry.
it may be a question of you beating yourself up for no reason.
I'm starting to understand it now, but it took about 5 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was because I think I had this like an idea of how the relationship would be and how my connection with my son would be. So that was completely different now, where I needed to learn and kind of work through that pain and understand. Now I even shortly after the separation happened, I understood on a soul level that this was what was supposed to happen. And I think for many starseeds, like until up to this point, like the relationships have felt like there's an aspect of assignment.
Yeah.
When they finish, like my soul says yes. There's an ego part that is struggling. Obviously, there's a human part, but on a soul level, I clearly see why it happened, how it happened, and then it was an assignment in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so one part of you would get that, but our ego mind, which is in the world, would go, but this is not my idea of a perfect relationship. And
Yes.
and also we have to give up the illusion of control which the ego can have. I could steer my son, it could have been this, it could have been so
Hmm.
nice, and oh, it
Hmm.
didn't happen. Why not? Maybe it
Yeah.
was my fault. And oh, it's all nonsense, because actually um, so my for example, my second long-term partner, we were together for 12 years, and at the end we were separating energetically. I could feel it, and
Yeah.
she could feel it, but
Hmm.
we tried to make it, but a deeper part was going, okay, you're done, but my
Yeah.
ego was not done. My personality says, no, 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 we're not done, we're staying together. And and you can't fight when the soul decides, okay, you guys are done because there's something more for you to do over there. And I was going, no, no, I'm not finished with it. Created a fight inside me. And
Hmm.
so when we have these fights with our deeper self, it's never good for us, because it always ends up in some kind of struggle. So whereas if I could have really understood it and accepted it, it would have been a lot easier. We're
Yeah.
still good. We're good friends, but I didn't want it to end. But it threw me into a whole period of deep growth, actually.
Yeah. That's yeah. I find that too. Um.
And if you ask your son, who's 8, how are you? Has everything? He'd probably say, I'm fine, mum. You went. I don't
Mhm.
know that you went to work for 2 years. I didn't notice. I was playing with my toys, or he may not notice even.
Yes, that's like it's like there was people around me telling me, but my ego part didn't get it. It was very attached to the breaking up of the idea of how it was supposed to be. Now I understand, and it's very. I can see him. He's a very beautiful, smart, amazing, happy, peaceful child, and I'm very grateful for that. But it was more me struggling with that part of oh, it didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that it's a mother program, and maybe it's also an ancestral program around this is the way a family should be together, and it shouldn't be any other way. And but even relationships and family energies are being kind of more fluid nowadays. You're finding a lot of breakups, and it's much
Yeah.
more fluid. And it would be nice if we could just have one partner for life, and one family for life. But
Mhm.
because of the nature of the soul mission at this time, we may be pulled out of a relationship, especially if the father, in your case, the vibrational mismatch is too strong.
Very.
You're a star seed, he's not. You're growing, he's not. Then it will be at some point it's hard for you to even relate.
Yeah, that's what happened, literally, yeah. And
Yeah,
it created, yeah, so for him it was difficult, but also for me because I understood how much pain I may be causing, but still I was in the same because I didn't want it to happen. Like I didn't want intentionally wanted to cause the pain. So yeah, there's this part of working things out.
yeah, and you have to be. Guilt is one of those energies which can be handed down the bloodline, especially if you have Catholic or Jewish background. Not exclusively, because everyone can suffer, but
Mhm.
but those particular cultures have a stronger programming of guilt. Usually, I don't know. Is Latvia a Catholic?
So my family was not particularly religious, actually. I was like little bit Lutheran, like kind of a little bit, but there was not a lot of religious kind of
No.
teaching.
Okay.
No, not really, not in immediate like my parents.
No. Bloodline may have a lot, actually.
Mm.
Bloodlines have a lot. Bloodlines can carry a lot of religious programming.
I felt it. I felt the guilt part was just incredible, I think, for a long while. So now I'm starting to kind of understand it as I go into clearing and more awareness. But that was present. And then there was a period of time where I started to kind of differentiate what is mine and what is not. So that was a difficult but interesting process, but also beneficial. I think we go through that at some point on this. Like,
Yeah.
but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
I
there
mean, we
is
can go through intense shedding of programming, and to shed the programming, we have to be presented with the programming. So, like, the
yeah,
situation is going to trigger all the programming to come up, and then you can do something with it. You can either follow the programming, and which is not a good idea, or you can become more aware of it and start to clear it with all the tools that are happening now.
Yeah.
which so many people are sharing tools for clearing ancestral programming and past life programming and all kinds of interference and stuff. So we have the tools. So the more it's provoked and it comes to the surface, we can have an intense period of clearing. Whereas
Yeah.
if it's totally, if we're living this idealistic life where everything's perfect and you have a perfect family and everything's fantastic, that programming stays hidden, you
Yeah.
know. So it's good. So maybe you've chosen, let's provoke some of this programming, let's clear it, you know.
Definitely. That was my like sensation since I was a little child. There was something of a provocation in me nonstop, sometimes unconscious, sometimes conscious. Really, I was like, ugh, there was this like sometimes pushing the limits, sometimes saying certain things just to kind of like, that was, I was little. I didn't know nothing about starseeds, nothing about that I might be one. It was just this sensation of why am I so different? Why all of you are so different? And how can we kind of like come together a little bit? But it didn't really happen.
Star
Uh,
seeds energetically are very different, and families energetically won't get them, and
yeah,
3D groups won't get them, 3D workplaces won't get them. And
yeah,
eventually you'll find, even if you want to belong to those places and want to be connected, energetically, you won't be able to be connected for very long. You can do it for a while, but eventually they'll spit you out.
that has been my experience. Like it's kind of like trying to. I have had those periods, so I haven't. So that leads me to the next question.
Yeah.
So like throughout my life, and I this is for many star seeds, I think. Is it like that aspect of that deep differentness, that almost alienation sensation, like you don't belong anywhere or to anyone except maybe to the other star? Like I connect very very closely with Pleiadian Connect Collective and Sirius. So does it ever change, or you kind of adjust into this, like connecting more to these energies instead of human, but still being a human? Like I do want that very close connection with another. So
Yeah.
does that make sense? It's like I haven't found any relationship where I would be like seen even to level like, okay, there's someone, okay, maybe a little close but not really at all.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier key people in your life. Key people tend to be soul family, and they energetically they will get us. They could be friends, they could be lovers, they could be siblings or children. So there
Hmm.
are some people that get us. They're very few, unless you're really in a center of a lot of star seeds. So
Yeah.
in London, I was a director of that organization where a lot of star seeds would come. So I
Yeah.
met a lot of them. I go to Glastonbury regularly. Was in there in Glastonbury last week for 5 days, and so there's a lot of people that hang out there. You know,
Yeah.
star seeds. If you go to Shasta, you'll meet them there. But if you go into the countryside, like in England, for example, or even Portugal, you might go to a little village and find absolutely no one understands who you are. Um, the key thing about a star seed is really at core, you might think that you're weird and it's okay.
Yeah.
We have to accept our weirdness
Hmm.
because for other people, we are so weird, you
So
know.
like
And so,
I know.
and if we feel, oh my God, I'm so weird, I have to be normal, I have to fit in, that's a problem. The more we
Hmm.
accept our weirdness, like with my children, they say, Dad, what are you doing? What are you up to? I say, I'm up to no good. And that keeps them happy because they kind of know I'm weird and I kind of make it as joke and it's humorous and it's not a big problem. But the more ashamed I am of my weirdness, the more I try to fit in, and I did try and fit in for a long time, it
Yeah.
creates more problems. And
Hmm.
trying to fit in places where you will not ever energetically belong will create a problem. It'll only
Yeah.
exacerbate the sense of not belonging. Is a universal experience for starseeds, because unless you're really embedded in a starseed family or a starseed husband or a lover or whatever,
Mhm.
um, if you're living somewhere where no one gets you, it creates this, and no one gets me, I don't belong. And people might try and hide in the closet hippies, closet spiritual beings,
Mm.
and you have to come out of the closet and find out where your weirdness is accepted. And that,
Mhm.
for me, was my journey. My weirdness was not accepted. I tried, it wasn't accepted in my family, it wasn't accepted in my first marriage, and so I had to leave and find, well, where is it accepted? And then I found the places. And then after many years of that, my soul called me on another journey to be even more weird, to talk about starseeds publicly. I mean, this is more weird. So, yeah. So so for me, the feeling of alienation, not belonging, is still there, but it's lessened because I've lost you, I think. Are you still there,
I'm
Anise?
still here. Yeah, I can see you and hear
I
you.
think I've lost you somehow. You're
No,
Well, anyway, maybe you can see me. I can't see you,
I
or I
can
can't
see
hear you.
you.
Anyway, it's lessened for me. I found places where I belong. I found communities where I belong. I found friends, partners where I belong.
Yeah.
Going to visit places like Glastonbury or Shasta, where there's a lot of hippies there, is wonderful. And also hanging out in nature. Nature, of course, doesn't ever judge us, so it's always a wonderful thing to hang out in nature. So, Aniz, where have you gone? I
Can you
can't
hear
see
me
you.
at least or no?
Let's see. uh, where have you gone? Just send you a message.
Okay.
I cannot see you
Also, everyone who is watching, can
or
you let
hear
me
you.
know if you can still hear me and Steve?
All right. Well, I'll keep talking while you're gone, hoping you're going to come back.
Nature.
I mean, one of the things leading on from what I'm saying is we tend to resist our core nature because, as I say, our ego doesn't being clever enough, not belonging, not trusting, or feeling let down or betrayed, for example. We may fear rejection. We may fear that we're not supported. We may not believe good things happen to us. We may have this black sheep of the family syndrome. We may have had authoritarian parents, authoritarian parenting. We may have had an imposition of values on us. So all of that creates resistance in us to really be ourselves. We get the message, don't be yourself, be who we think you are. The ego resistance stems from fear, of course, separation and fear. We start doubting ourselves. We start avoiding things. We start feeling confused. We start going into distractions or dramas. We start over rationalizing stuff. We may block our intuition through our logical mind. And we may fear stepping out. We may fear change. We may fear issues around money, for example. So this is all very common. Resisting our true essence, our true nature. Inez, there you are. Can you hear me?
Oh, are you okay? Okay. Can you see me and hear me?
Yeah, I just kept talking because you disappeared.
Everyone saying that they can hear and see us both. I could hear and see you. So I think everything's fine.
Okay.
Except I'm having an echo right now.
Okay. Well, I just talked a little bit about why we resist our true nature. So, because I couldn't see you, I thought I'm talking to myself, but I might as well entertain myself or anybody else that's listening.
Yeah,
So
I could still hear you.
I think it can get better as long as, for some of us, we may have to really get courage or strength to, no matter what people around me are saying I should be, I'm going to do what I feel I'm going to do. I'm going to live the life that I'm going to live, no matter what my mother or father says, no matter what my friends say. Sometimes the lesson is, even if the whole world is saying, be a square peg, you have to be your unique, a round peg.
Definitely.
Otherwise, it's really a big problem. Trying to be normal and trying to fit in is a terrible idea.
I tried it. It didn't work for me at all.
Yeah, I've tried it. It's terrible. It was the worst thing I tried, actually.
Which was the worst for me as well.
Yeah.
So so something I wanted to talk to you about, like I'm having an echo. I don't know if everyone else is hearing, but okay, I'll
It's
keep
okay for
talking.
me. Yeah.
So there was something you mentioned in the interview that's really stuck to me when you said uh, Jesus came to this planet. He didn't come to bring the peace, but came to bring the sword.
Yeah.
And that's something like really resonated with me, especially at this time, as we are kind of asked to mature and be ourselves and kind of show up into who we are. There's more this energy and aspect of being a warrior as well, not only maybe peaceful and the healer energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, um, so yeah, when Jesus was asked, he was asked something, and he said, "I did not come to bring peace; I come to bring the sword." I always puzzled over that. I thought, why would he say such a
Yeah,
thing? And when you read the history of the planet, of religion and the pain it's caused, and I would think then at some level he knew what he was doing. Why would an enlightened master being Avatar like him bring such pain and war and suffering? And I couldn't have an answer really for a long time, but
mm-hmm.
I feel what happened was that he brought a seed of light into the 3D matrix, into this world of separation and heavy. I mean, back in Palestine, in Roman occupied Palestine, the energies must be incredibly dense and heavy, and there he was,
Yeah,
Starseeds are not going to get crucified for standing up and saying what they want to say these
mm-hmm.
days. But there he was. He knew that this was a kind of path. It was a 3 year, ministry, and he planted the seed of light, and then it created mayhem. It kind of eventually, the Roman Empire embraced it, but it created war after war after war. And we're still seeing war now around religion.
Yeah,
I mean, even in England, we had in Ireland, we had the Protestant Catholic conflicts, and in Europe, mostly that settled down. I mean, in the Muslim world, they've got that kind of conflict. These kind of religions create schisms and fights because they get hacked into by dark forces that create fighting and all kinds of things.
yeah,
So in today, a starseed living an ordinary life and not awakened suddenly gets a lot of download of light, starts waking up, their vibration shifts, and it creates a shattering of the old life. Usually the
mm-hmm.
old life doesn't fit anymore. And you
Yeah,
might think, I liked my old life, this husband, this job, this house, whatever, but your energy is shifting and you can't connect with it anymore. And it's quite painful to release it sometimes, but we have to release it. The law of resonance, which is about the law of vibration, says that for two beings or energies or systems to be in harmony, there has to be a kind of vibrational match. And
yeah,
so you meet your husband maybe, and maybe you're not fully awakened, and so there's a match of some kind
mm-hmm.
energetically, but then you start shifting and growing and waking up. At a certain point, it blows the relationship up
Mm-hmm.
because your energy is going higher and his staying the same, and so you're kind of separating. And it's almost like an elastic band may connect you until breaks.
Yeah,
So starseeds come to the planet to wake up and start activating light within the energy fields. That activation in thousands of beings creates a wave across the planet. So the planet has been dense for a long time, and you imagine placing a wave of light in that density. It creates a lot of volatility. So it's another way of looking at it is, imagine that there's a river flowing, and
mm-hmm.
it flows along happily for a while around boulders and whatever it's doing, and then you introduce a new river, and the two rivers meet, and where they meet, it creates a lot of turbulence because there's two currents coming in. And
Yeah,
so this is the thing: the light current is coming into the old current. It's creating a lot of volatility. That volatility happens within the starseed themselves as well. The higher self is there, and the ego is there, and it creates this volatility. The ego says, "Be safe, don't trust. It's nonsense. Do your job, pay your mortgage." And the higher self says,
mm-hmm.
"Forget that. Do the journey, embrace the journey." And so that creates volatility for a while, and maybe doubt and confusion, and eventually, the higher that you hopefully trust the higher self, and then the journey starts. There's still doubt as the ego goes, "Are you sure you're doing this? Are you crazy? You gave that job up, you gave that lovely husband up," and all
Yeah,
that goes on. Across the planet, the volatility is happening in systems now because you're seeing in America Donald Trump is a very new and strange president, considering what they've had for the last 50 years. He's a
Yeah.
new element, a crazy element, maybe, but a new element.
Maybe we needed a crazy new element.
Yeah, the planet needs a crazy element. He's not an enlightened being by any means. People think he's an enlightened being. I don't believe that. But I
Yeah.
think he's kind of has a strong ego and a strong drive, and that you need someone with that level of ego to be crazy enough to go in the dark and become a president with all the kind of craziness going on in America. And in Britain, we've got Brexit. Europe's got Brexit. France is in turmoil. So there's all this turmoil on the planet of war and grabbing resources and planetary, environmental problems. It all seems to be a lot of issues around the planet.
Yeah.
But we're in this period of intense volatility that will probably last. Well, the most intense period will be another this year and next year and the year after is probably the most intense period we're going to be. And then it eases off planetarily. I think it gets easier, actually.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well.
So it's almost like, if the body wants to shift something, it gets sick, it starts vomiting, it starts having diarrhea, it starts having fever, and the body can kind of throw out. As long as we don't take drugs to suppress the body's mechanism, the body can heal itself usually. If you are an awakened being, you heal yourself. I don't go to doctors to take pills. Only in very extreme have I ever done it, a couple of times, antibiotics, when I think I have to do it. But mostly I let my body just do what it needs to do. And you have a healing crisis and the body gets better. So the planet's going through its healing crisis now. But it is that energy of the Jesus and the sword. Starseeds do not come to bring peace. They come to bring the sword, and that sword is changing the world. The world will take, really to look at really a shift, powerful shift. You're looking at 30 to 50 years because, people like us are coming in. We're the kind of pioneering, we're leading the way. But the new waves are going to really change the planet. But we're the ones that we are going into dark bloodlines. We're contesting dark systems. We're neutralizing the dark, so the new wave can come in and have an easy run.
Yeah, I completely agree. I definitely relate to the aspect of having like this intense sense of a mission, like a job, doing a job in this planet.
Yeah.
And
you have to do that mission. You've agreed to it.
I have, yes. And it took some time to kind of understand it better, which I do now, which makes it kind of easier if I lean into what I'm supposed to do. The kind of universe that brings those pieces together when I'm pushing against and resisting.
Yeah, well, everyone has a soul mission, and we all universally resist that soul mission. We all resist the soul mission. Even if that soul mission is obvious to others, we kind of go, no, I'm not doing that. You must be joking. So I had, I've told the story a few times, about 12 years ago, maybe longer, actually, maybe 13 years ago, a good friend who was a coach said to me, you're a magician, in a coaching session.
Yeah.
And I remember going, well, what am I going to do with that? What do you mean I'm a magician? I'm going to go out in the world and say I'm a magician. And then, people are going to give me money for being a magician. I completely discounted it. And it took me, 9 years of going through a shift and waking up on the other side, go, all right, whatever it is, I'll do it now. I'm not going to resist it.
Yeah.
But I resisted it. I fought it. I'm not going to do this crazy stuff.
Yeah. I want to thank you, I think for you and people like you, because it's like essential for someone like me to have this kind of foreground of starseeds that are showing and doing the work, as we then even it's a little bit more easier. It was brutal for me, like as I was growing up. Yeah. But now it's easy.
Well, I think my job is to do all this way out stuff, but also to do it in a way that seems grounded and ordinary. Like I'm not wearing. So I was in Glastonbury, and you could walk down the high street and have rainbow dreadlocks in your hair, and I could walk with a white robe and swinging crystals, And I
Mhm.
could do that, but actually I feel that my job is to just become really ordinary, dress ordinary, be ordinary, speak ordinary. I mean, I'm speaking, I'm not trying to channel Jesus as I'm speaking to you. I'm
Mhm.
just telling you this is my
Yeah,
experience. And
yeah.
I think it's important because one of the key questions people have is, how do I know this is for real? How do I know that guy's for real, or that woman's for real,
Yeah.
or this path is for real? And so I think it's very important. So for me, when I talk in interviews or in workshops or whatever, to talk about life story, about experience, about what I've found, because what I've gone through is pretty universal. you
Mhm.
know, Fear, doubt, resistance, betrayal,
Yeah.
abandonment, not belonging. I can talk about that, and people go, "Oh yeah, 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 I know that
Mhm.
feeling." Whereas if I'm talking about the 20th dimension of the holy archangels of the flaming altar, then people might go, well, "Yeah, but I don't relate." So the
Yeah.
meditations and transmissions helps them have an experience, helps people have their own experience. Really,
Yeah.
I'm guiding people to have an experience, but I don't know what the experience will be. I'm saying, here's an experience, here's a doorway. If you want to have a look, go through and see what you feel. And that's my job. I don't say, okay, now visualize a unicorn and jump on the unicorn's back and go for a ride across the rain. I don't do that. I just say, here's a door, step through the door and allow your higher self to show you what's on the other side. And
It,
people email me with 100 different variations of what they experience.
I can
And
definitely be. I have a powerful experience through your transmissions and meditations. In a way that you say, it just opens my own kind of, it's like a doorway, as you say. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I know one of the things I've kind of know is that when I'm speaking, I'm not really speaking so much to your unconscious mind, to your conscious mind. I'm speaking more to the unconscious mind,
Yeah.
because the unconscious mind is the part of us that just opens the door. So I say to the I'm always speaking to the child self. Okay, relax and breathe and feel safe with these angels holding you. And now we're going to have an experience. Do you want to come? And the child self goes, okay. Whereas if that child self goes, no, you're a bit weird, I ain't coming, then nothing happens.
Yeah. That's
So,
exactly how I've been experiencing.
so I'm always speaking to the child within, going, do you want to come and have a magical adventure with me? And eventually the child usually says, okay, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. And then we
Exactly.
go. The
Yeah.
other the other thing about I didn't realize this before, but now I realize it, that the work now is on, particularly on YouTube, growing that big audience, is to create a big energy where I can help direct big waves of light across the planet. So, for
Mhm.
example, I did a world peace transmission, which has had about 13,000 plays. I did that transmission just before the Iran thing was kicking off,
Mhm.
and it looked like Trump might escalate. And
Yeah.
so we got and I'm doing it. I'm sure other people are doing it as well. So we help create a wave of light to actually neutralize the impulse towards war. So that's
Yeah.
another aspect to it. So we actually hit with 83,000 star seeds on the platform now. We can say, do you want to do a piece? And with 83,000 star seeds all focusing, it creates a big wave that kind of blows away all this. Hopefully, and it starts to counter this impulse of let's go have a war, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of it. But I didn't realize that at the beginning. I had the realization as the platform's grown that what we can do with it, with everyone
Exactly.
focusing in like a laser on different things. So
I think it's powerful, and I've seen how other people, their experiences are very healing through those meditation calls. I'm looking forward to what it can grow.
yeah, I aim to, when I first started, I aim to have 100,000 star seeds in 5 years. So the
Yeah.
program's been going now for 3 years. Is it 3 years? 2016, 17, 18, 4 years, actually,
Or,
4 years, 4 years. So in 4 years, I've got to 83 and a half. So I think I'm going to reach 100,000 within 5 years. So that'll be nice.
yep.
And then I'll just have to aim for 150,000 or something.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because there's quite a few million on the planet, but it's just reaching them all is the thing.
I think it's because there's more and more waking up and more energetically being drawn to that. So I think it's gonna just compound. as we
Hopefully.
expand into higher vibration. I feel it like a process like that.
Yeah, hope so. So that's the work for me anyway. It's waking up and also pulling some people out of the dark, because a few people on Starseeds are still in the dark, having dark times, and helping to pull them out and
Yeah.
say, okay, pull you out and get on track. It's for others who really want to wake up. It's for some who just want a sense of community. There's a number of aspects to it, but
Yeah.
it's a resource for people who feel a bit of alone or isolated or not belonging.
It's for me it was incredible when I started to listen. I only found your work like about a year ago, and then it went into like such a deep process. So
Oh, well, I
yeah,
just actually, I think while we're speaking,
yeah,
uploaded a new one onto the channel,
you
and
did.
that new one is called the Goddess Ma'at Transmission.
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
post it after in the comments.
yeah, that's the latest one. It went up half an hour ago. So
Nice,
while we were talking, it was uploading. There
nice.
it is.
It's a
So I'm
powerful day today.
Yeah, so I'm running a retreat in Egypt, and that transmission is an introduction to some of the energies on the retreat. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that retreat will be later in the year. It's my first.
In
I've
Egypt.
Yeah. Well, Egypt is something that I've kind of thought for a long time, but always avoided. I thought, because it's a light and dark place, isn't it? The history is light and dark,
Yeah.
and I think I've had light and I've had dark there, so I've always avoided thinking I'm not going to go there.
Mm-hmm.
But this year I'm being called to go and face and to open whatever needs to be done there. So that's what me and Katie, this other friend's going to do it.
When is
And
that?
that's going to be the 19th to the 28th of November. I haven't put details yet up on my website, but it's a 9-day retreat working on the 9 layers of the light body,
Okay.
through movement and meditation and inner work. So inner work and outer work, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and make it as reasonable as possible financially. So it looks like it can be around 1,800 all in,
Mm-hmm.
plus flights, and flights from London are about 300 return. So yeah, it's about 1,800 for 9 days, and we'll be doing lots of tours to the temples in Luxor,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, we'll be having sessions in the hotel room and going to the souk market, and there'll be various of things, go and see the
Yeah.
area, and then doing the work, then go and see the area, seeing the temples, doing the work. So
Um,
yeah, that's exciting. I'm also a bit excited, but also a bit like, oh, Egypt, oh, there's some
that's
clearing to be done.
yeah. Because that's like the next level. Like there's always this you're called, and then there's a level of like, oh, what's there to clear, or you're like that's usually for me. Like when there's the next thing, there's like, oh, I'm excited that there's something to clear out in the process.
Yeah, there's always more processing to do. Egypt will
Yeah.
certainly be a process for sure. Yeah.
Let's do to
Hmm?
summarize with people who are watching. Is that okay?
Yeah, so go on. Yeah.
So, hi Maria. Because so Deborah, let's see if there's any questions. Hi, hi Rachel. So Amanda, uh, Regina, let's see if there's any questions. Yeah. So I'm just saying, Trump is here to change for someone better to come later, right? That's what you say.
I didn't catch that. It's better to come
But
later.
Trump is here to change for someone better to come later,
Oh, I
right?
see. Yeah.
That's what you said. Yeah.
Well, Trump broke the game, because the game has been played for ever since World War II.
Yeah.
The game is in America, and the kind of before World War II, it wasn't so controlled, but after World War II, you could say Illuminati or dark forces became increasingly more powerful and influential around the president, and to the point where the president really was quite limited in what he or she could do.
Yeah.
In recent years, we've had Reagan, you've had Bush, and then you had Bush Jr. and then
Mhm.
Obama. And even though Obama was a wonderful orator, and a wonderful speaker, and was really good at speaking to the collective. He was also, I believe, part of the game. He wasn't really doing major changes. He was playing along. Um, and Hillary Clinton would have been, in my view, a terrible choice for America
Agree.
because of what she was wanting to do and just because of the things she's involved in.
Yeah.
Trump was the wild card, and I think the Illuminati feels they can control him, and up to some point maybe they can, but he's still a wild card. And the great thing about him is he's revealing a lot of the people are looking at what he's doing and saying, go, that's crazy. Whereas before, it was it was a tight act. You go,
Yeah.
all right, you hear the speeches and you go, okay, fine, or whatever. But you listen to him and go, is this guy crazy or what? With his tweets, what is he doing? Does he know what he's doing?
I see him
Um,
as a disruptor. He's like a
He's a
disruptor.
disruptor, yeah, and that disruptor is needed. So he is laying the grounds for hopefully something better further down the line. But the politics in America and Britain is highly controlled. Really, in
Yeah.
Britain we had the election, and really, I was very disappointed with the result. But that's where the collective is at the moment. So the dark forces are still shaking these things up, but increasingly the dark forces behind all the political leaders are being revealed, and what they're up to is being revealed, and people are not believing it anymore, and people are speaking out. So the interesting thing was, like Hollywood, the whole Hollywood thing, which has been a very dark theater for a while of control. So there's a lot of cases where stuff's being revealed. There was the Golden Globe Award with what's his name, Ricky Gervais. You know that
Yeah.
that speech was really interesting. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
it was amazing that he would speak in that way to Hollywood, and that is a marker that hasn't happened before. So it's a sign that even in that place, the light is changing, and it's being, a lot of stuff's being revealed. And yeah, and I think that's like the Wizard of Oz, the wizard behind the curtain is being revealed, and people are
Yeah.
looking, going, "What's going?" And Trump is part of that, revealing what's going on behind. He's not intentionally doing it, but that's actually what he's doing, I think.
Yeah.
So they're all laying the before any major change can happen. There has to be this period of confusion and weird stuff going on. So
Definitely.
Trump,
Yes. Sir.
I mean, people think of him. Some people think of him as an avatar, like sent from God, and I just think, and I've had this conversation with friends, and I say, you have to look what he's doing and read what his tweets, and then go, would a person sent by God say those things? I don't think so. But they're really, there's a website, QAnon, that puts out he's the kind of next
Uh-huh.
avatar Jesus Christ, and evangelicals in America believe that. But he is a great disruptor, as you say. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's how I see it. And, because, like I said, there has to be a disruption, and also astrologically with this new cycle of Pluto and Saturn, when everything's coming to surface, there will be a time of disruption, and he's the element into that, not like a savior type of person.
Yeah, he's not a savior, but he's a disruptor for sure.
Yeah.
So, as I say, we've got 3 years of intense shifts on the planet. After 2022, there'll be some major shifts, but they'll be of the light. I think the shifts which are
That's
coming,
good to hear.
even in this year and 21 and 22, there are
Yeah.
shifts in the light. A lot of starseeds are shifting powerfully into the light, stepping
Mm-hmm.
powerfully on their path. But also, there'll be the Earth's going through its major purges. There's volcanoes and earthquakes and all of that. It's not destroying, mass destruction, but because it's not being allowed. But there may be some Earth changes on the planet. I'm not completely sure, but what I'm pretty sure of, there'll be some major events that shake up the collective big time, because the collective is still apathetic and still, it may be something around the climate has gone berserk, with fires in Australia, and the planet is shifting, and the climate will continue to shift, I think. And we have to change how we live on this planet. We can't keep dumping plastic in the oceans and
Exactly.
pollution in the oceans and landfills. We have to change.
Yeah. And we're almost an hour. Time goes so
I
fast.
know, it was wonderful.
I know. I have one question that's been on my mind. It's
Yeah.
about the moon.
The moon. Oh, the moon.
The
Yeah.
moon.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I'm gonna ask? But you just wanna, because like, how can I explain? there's information like about the moon being supported by this being a control system and fear, infusing the fear into the collective. But in the same time, where is the original moon?
Where
What?
does what?
Where is the original moon? I know it's
Oh, where's the original? I don't know. I think scientists still are not sure how the moon got there. They're not sure.
okay.
And I don't know. There's a lot of theories that it's an artificial satellite, which it might be. There's theories
Yeah.
it might be an artificial satellite that was placed for, maybe originally not a negative reason, but I don't
Mhm.
know. But somehow it became part of a control grid.
Yeah.
It looks like there are alien bases on the moon, light and dark alien bases, apparently, uh,
Okay.
on the dark side of the moon. Some people think the moon is hollow, which would be the artificial satellite idea. But
Yeah.
whatever it is, I worked with the moon magically for about 12 years. I worked in Wicca as magical. Moon energy is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And then gradually I was open to the idea that actually that's not a good idea. And
Oh.
so I stopped and I did some processes privately to unplug myself from the moon and felt a lot better. And then I did that over about a 5-year period. And then I had an email from someone. I think it was an email. Yeah, it was an email. Someone saying, it was a mother saying, I'm just asking you, can you do something about the moon because I'm suffering very badly. Me and my son, Starseed son, every full moon we just get whacked and attacked. And I looked at that thinking, oh, maybe it's time to do something. And so I created the transmission, and I thought I'll just give it to her and just some private people. But then I had the feeling, you know what, it's time to make it public, even though it's controversial, because it is controversial, because a
It
lot of
is.
people, they like the moon and they like working with the moon. So what I say is that I'm not talking about the gravitational pull of the moon. You can't negate the gravitational pull of the moon. We're not talking about menstrual cycle. We're talking about magical working with the moon in this life or any other lifetime or your bloodlines that we have to neutralize and come away from.
Okay.
And on the transmission, I checked it really closely, the feedback, because I wanted to know how people were. And all the feedback from people who did it was, I think 99% was amazing. Thank you so much. There was questions about, can I put my crystals under the moon? And I'll say, you can do that. It's fine. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about unplugging magically, because the moon, I think, can open people up to lower astral energies. And if you think the word
Yeah.
lunacy,
Yeah.
craziness.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was working in Wicca, I saw a lot of craziness, and I wonder, where's this craziness coming from? Where's this fighting? Where's this mad? There was a madness in the organization I worked
Yeah.
with, I should say, for a while. And I think the whole Wiccan movement and goddess movement is brilliant, but I do think the moon is a problem, and the channel of light in our body should be core of the earth to the core of the great central sun. I do not believe we should be connecting into the moon, which is this artificial satellite. There is no, I don't feel any goddess energy there. I don't feel it has an intense gravitational pull. It has an intense energy with it, but I don't feel any positive goddess or grandmother moon or any of that stuff. There are lots of goddess energies available, but I do not go to the moon for it.
Okay. I
That's just my
see.
personal experience.
This answer, yeah, you can feel like the right to me as truth. Yeah.
And
Thank
I
you.
think, eventually, I'm not sure, but one channel said this. I think Barbara Marciniak, who channeled the Palladians, said that in the
Yeah.
future, the female menstrual cycle will be a solar cycle
Wow.
and not a lunar one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about that, the whole one of the problems on the planet is population. You
Mm-hmm.
can get pregnant every month, but if you can get pregnant like once a year, like like lambing in spring, all the little lambs come or something, it
Yeah.
changes. And also around sexual energy, I think in the future, a lot of star seeds are opening up to the idea that we our sexual energy is powerful, and we can actually invite souls in consciously or refuse the soul consciously through sexual energy. This is something I've been working with for a number of years.
Yeah.
That you don't um, you can actually. I remember once with my ex-partner, a soul wanted to come in. We felt the soul coming, and people were dreaming about it. Her son was telling me, "I'm dreaming about this baby sister," and I was meditating and felt this energy wanted to come in, and I refused it. So we're not ready for you. We can't have you. And the
Yeah.
energy went away after 2 or 3 days, and my partner didn't get pregnant. And so that is something that the more and more people are consciously open to sexual energy, that will change the planet. Because unconscious sexual energy is creating so much misery on the planet.
True.
Children born in unconsciousness through drunk parents, or parents who just want to, it's just lust, it's not love. It creates wobbles on the planet energetically. So that is something that will be healed as more and more people embrace conscious sexuality and release the energy of the moon also, which is that interference. And maybe, I think at certain point, I don't know how that will happen, I'm not sure about it, but some way down the future, the menstrual cycle may be more aligned to the solar cycle and less to the moon. But I don't know how that will happen. That is, I can't see that yet.
Yeah, but it sounds, because I was kind of confused about it. So this kind of brings clarity, but also, sorry, as you said, I do agree and align with the information you share. So, however it happens, I think it will.
Yeah. Well, definitely, there are people already working a lot with sacred sexuality, and that's really important. There's tantra, but there are other practices where you can, if both partners are energetically clear and aligned, and you have a real clear intention with working with, are we inviting a soul in to this space of love or not, that will be a major shift for
Yeah,
the planet, really. Yeah. So children are born in love then.
exactly. Beautiful. That
Yeah, and
that
that
would be
attracts high frequency beings. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, Steve, thank you so much. This is
My
really
pleasure, Denise. My
amazing.
pleasure.
And
Thank you.
oh, and about emotional transmission. And I will post it in the comments after. Okay.
I
Okay.
didn't. Yeah. Okay.
So she was asking which moon transmission. I think I'm having the echo, so I do apologize for that for
Yeah.
whoever's watching. She was asking which moon transmission. So I
Oh,
know.
there's a moon magic reversal transmission on my YouTube channel. So if you just go to the YouTube channel, which is Steve Nobel, and I've got this kind of golden tree image, and not far down, it's on the third, because there's about 200 videos
Yeah.
there. Third one down, moon matrix reversal meditation. It's had about 27,000 plays already. So you'll find it on the YouTube channel.
And I posted your YouTube channel, your website, and the ebook as well. It's all in the comments for whoever wants to access that.
Fantastic. Thanks, Aniz.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much. It was amazing, and in all different ways. So I
Well, if
appreciate
I come back to Portugal, I'll come and have tea with you or something.
that. Would be the greatest.
I found a
Okay.
very nice tea shop in Cascais. I forget the name of it, but it was a beautiful independent shop. I really liked it there. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, definitely let me know if you're coming to Portugal. Let's go to
Okay.
the tea shop. Have more
Okay.
experience.
Well, actually, I have a very good friend in Portugal who's a very good teacher.
Yes.
She lives in Cascais. Her name is Raquel Sacramento.
Okay.
And I'm inviting her actually to London, but she is in Portugal, and she teaches this very beautiful Akashic clearing method. I've done
Mm,
some levels with her already. She's got a whole new modality coming out. So I'm inviting her to London in March, but she's doing it in Portugal. She'll probably do online training. I think it's Nova Terra or nova.terra.org, I think is her website.
okay. Thank you for that. I'll research her because
Yeah.
I'm very definitely looking forward to connecting to more people like me. Beings.
Yeah. Drop her a line. She's lovely, and she's a great crystal healer as well. So,
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
all right, Niz.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you,
Love
everyone.
you all, and we'll have a wonderful rest of the day.
Yeah, I'm just reading the comments. Looks lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Oh, great.
Okay. Let me know when you do.
Okay. Thanks, Aniz.
Thank you. Oh.